British mining engineer Edward Thomas McCarthy visited Leadville during the late summer of 1879 and left us a vivid but rarely heard first-person account of the new mining camp. Published 40 years after the trip using his diary and letters, the book recounts a colorful and meandering westward journey. Having just graduated from the Royal School of Mines 2 years before, in early 1879, McCarthy decided to join a colleague on a trip around the world to find work in the mining industry. While his accounts of mining and work are few at first, the book is mostly the detailed observations of a young man experiencing the freedom of a gap year. He escaped a fire while attending a theater performance in Manhattan, contracted a mysterious illness from a meal of catfish in Washington, D.C., and listened to a Lakota war chief deliver a speech to his defeated warriors on a steamboat at Omaha. Informally written, the book describes many rare details of the frenetic United States during the 1870s. The book reads like a modern-day adventurer's visit to the provinces of an exotic republic, where rules are few, life is nearly always in peril, and encounters with memorable characters abound. After rambling around mining camps in southern Colorado, the 22-year-old McCarthy appeared in Pueblo, he called it Puebla, and decided to learn for himself what was so enticing about the silver camp on the upper Arkansas River. This time, on Lost Leadville, we pick up on the exceptional first-hand story of the real Wild West in this excerpt of Edward Thomas McCarthy's Incidents in the Life of a Mining Engineer. Soon afterwards, I returned to Puebla, which was the seat of a big smelting industry. Here, I found every boarding house and hotel full, and had to pay $5 or 20 shillings to be allowed to lie down and camp at night in one of their corridors. The reason of this overcrowding of the town was the stampede then going on to Leadville, the new and great silver mining camp recently discovered up in the mountains. I think it was some 140 miles distant. Hither I was determined to go, and I was very lucky in getting a seat in one of the coaches going up there, a seat too beside the driver. These drivers are renowned for their skill, and I witnessed it on this journey. Driving a coach and six along this road, indeed one could hardly call it a road, required a firm wrist and good handling of the ribbons. Soon after leaving the city, we passed through the great canyon nearby, through which rushed in a huge torrent the upper course of the Arkansas River. Imagine a narrow valley just wide enough to contain the river and a road alongside it, whose dark precipitous sides stood up absolutely perpendicularly for some 4,000 feet or more in height, one of the Rockies' great canyons and one of the sights of the world. So onward we galloped, changing horses at about every 8 to 10 miles stretch, until emerging on the heights above, we wound our way across some alkaline flats. On either side of the road, we passed, as we went on, dead horses, mules, and donkeys, with carts and wagons of all descriptions laden with tents, tools, and possessions left by their occupants on the roadside, since draft animals to replace those that had died were not forthcoming. My driver was typical of such men in the profession. Down steep descents, with the off-wheels running along the edge of precipices, we would hold our breath, as with superhuman skill he steered our fractious-looking horses, trailing behind them our frail machine, a mark of what nerve and experience could do. My driver was full of wonderful stories of Leadville, of the rich discoveries made there, and of the marvelous and quick fortunes also made there, and of stories, too, of his own adventures on the road. He proved to be a most communicative Jehu, offering as he did all sorts of advice, and all gratis. The proverbial cigar of the driver was often produced, and with horses galloping and ribbons in hand, he would strike a match and light it with the greatest ease, while his whip he could almost, so to speak, flick a fly off the lead horse. At the station houses were shanties on the road. We stopped for meals and for the night. Here, in this unhospitable region amongst rocks and sand, we had quite good meals served, and at less a cost than at a hotel in Puebla City. Even the turkey and cranberry sauce, a staple hotel dish in those days, if not even now, was forthcoming. And of course, the American pie washed down with bad tea or coffee. The scenery of the Rockies in these parts was wild, rugged, grand, but the absence of water, of waterfalls, glaciers, gives it a tone of barbaric splendor, totally different from that of the Swiss Alps and their numerous glaciers, waterfalls, running streams, and prettily situated, richly cultivated valleys intervening. I have since crossed and recrossed the Rockies by many different routes, but everywhere there is a scenic display of barbaric splendor, of ruthless forces at work, as if a gigantic enemy had upheaved the whole and left it in deathless ruins. We arrived in Leadville without any holdup. There was the great and new camp whose fame had not gone out to the world. San Francisco and New York were dealing freely in its stocks. London was incredulous and only came in later to buy up at prices already risen too high. What a city I beheld! The main street was composed of roughly constructed frame houses which had been quickly run up, and of tents and booths. These mostly consisted of boarding houses, restaurants, gambling houses, and other hells. I put up in a small boarding house shanty and fared very well during my stay here. I made the acquaintance of some of the assayers, as they knew what was going on better than most people in the claims around. One of them proved to be exceptionally nice, a university man for whom I did some work, to let him out around a bit. He asked me to join him, but I had other views. Leadville had been discovered late in the previous year, 1878, when there was a rush to it. In the spring of 1879, the first rush was followed by a still greater one, and at the same time of my visit, there must have been over 10,000, mostly men, camped up there. A very large booth was crammed with all sorts of conditions of men. Some of the worst backgrounds in camp were there. The person, whoever he was a man of the world and did not attempt to preach, but simply made friends, chatted with as many as he could, and I have no doubt followed some of them up afterwards. What hidden stories some of those rough, careless men could have told. Many had doubtless been brought up in the refinement of which no trace was now left. In a camp of this sort, humanity is exceptionally interesting.